Welcome to Three Count Commentaries. So, we're going to give my live experience at GCW Most Notorious from January the 14th, 2022. So, the show, all in all, was very fun. It was also, so in this video, I'm going to talk about the show. I'm probably not going to give a blow by blow review, mainly because I know people don't really care that much about GCW. But also, I want to compare it to my experience going to Raw. So for people who might be new to this channel, maybe you stumbling across the channel for the first time, I have only been to 4 wrestling shows, despite the fact that I'm a super fan and I've been a fan since 1990. My first wrestling show was in 1996, and it was one of the shows that the Ultimate Warrior skipped out on and was replaced by Psycho Sid. From that point, I had not been to a wrestling show. I didn't go to a wrestling show again until 2007, which was WrestleMania 23. I believe that was in Detroit. Battle of the Billionaires with Donald Trump. From there, I did not go to a wrestling show again until 2021. Monday Night Raw, which was December the 27th. So it was last month, literally a couple of weeks ago. And so this was my first indie show and only my 4th wrestling show ever. And I have to say, I want to just look at the experiences that between going to Raw and going to GCW, and also just talk about the venue, and everything that goes with going out to a wrestling show instead of just doing a regular wrestling review, which is matches. There's very little in the way of storylines to talk about anyway. But just instead of going into all that stuff, just give you the overall idea, the overall feel of being at this event. So we stood outside in the cold for about 40 minutes. The show was supposed to start, well, the doors opened at 6:30. I got there literally, well, Harpo's is right around the corner from my house. So I got there about 6:45, maybe got in at about 7:30-ish, 7:45 maybe an hour. I waited outside in the cold. It was pretty bad, bro. Mid January in Detroit. It was not fun. But I was surprised at the turnout. Harpo's, for people who don't know, is a rock concert. It's a rock theater. There's almost no reason ever for me to go inside that building, but I go past that building every day. So I'll walk up and down, those streets, maybe go to that to the Coney Island over there. There's a Family Dollar over there. There's like all kinds of little shops over there, and we see Harpo's all the time, but I've never been inside it. I've been over in this area over 20 years. I have never been inside that building. And it's a toilet on the outside. It's a toilet on the inside, but it actually looks nice. But outside, they didn't bother to redo the marquee or nothing. It just says GCW. So if you don't know what that is, you didn't show up to this show, right? The first thing I want to talk about is I was impressed with how diverse the fan base was. Now, when I did my first thoughts, as I was walking down the street to get in line, I of course was like, look at all of these white people. Like, it was more white people than I ever thought was ever going to be on the east side of Detroit. But as slowly but surely, especially as the day went on, I started seeing more black people, but I also started seeing a lot of kids. And here's the interesting thing about the kids. There was almost no little girls. Almost everybody who brought a kid brought a little boy. And it was the weirdest thing. It was like so weird that for starters, I will say this, they do have a diverse fan base. There was a lot of girls who had came by themselves. They were like with no guys with them. So that was fun. Of course, the red-haired, blue-haired sect was out there. They didn't make up as much of the fan base as I thought they would. That's kind of what I thought. GCW's fan base would be more of those, but it didn't bring out as many of those as I thought. But so outside, we eavesdropped, chit-chatted. I try to push the channel a little bit. That was, I wish I had t-shirts or something made. But that was about it. On the outside, it was just waiting. When we got inside, though, I got to see the inside of the venue. And despite the fact that it's not the best venue, it's turned out to be very good because it's very intimate. I took pictures of the venue, and the seating arrangements was an absolute nightmare. That man, it was an absolute nightmare. But we'll talk about that in a second. As soon as I come in, they're selling pizza by the slice on one side. That's really all the food that they have. Now, of course, they got a bar, so they're selling beer, and everybody's like super getting drunk. I mean, they're hammering beers. And there's a merch table, and over to the side is Sabu and Kevin Nash. They're taking pictures and signing autographs and stuff like that. I didn't really get into too much of that. Also, I didn't know that, they didn't take cards. So it was like you had to have cash. And I was like, what? Like, this is a modern economy, and we got to, like, there's no card transactions. I have to have cash. Like, I really would have bought a sweater, like a GCW hoodie. But they was like, oh, yeah, you got to have cash. I was like, oh, look, somebody could have told me that, so I was like, nah. But they had like posters and stuff like that. It was a small merch table. It wasn't mammoth. They didn't have a lot of stuff. But it was nice. The venue itself, it felt small. Like, it really did. When I was walking to my seat, or as I was lost in the venue trying to find my seat, I just kept noticing how small the ring was, like how small the ring is. And then Brett Lauderdale like walked right past me. And I've seen the guy before. He walked right past me. I was like, God damn, he's a fucking midget. And I just kept that whole he's a fucking midget just kept going through my head all night long. I'm not a big dude, but I'm bigger than most of the people that I saw on this show all night long. They don't look that big on TV, but holy shit, do they not look big in person. And to make it even worse, to not get too much into the show, at least right now, the aura of these guys exists as they do the entrance, as they do the match, but then 10 minutes later, they become normal guy. And they're almost indistinguishable from any other normal guy. Case in point, Jimmy Lloyd, who people were really excited about. He was in the opening match. People were really excited to see him, and they were chanting for him and everything. I didn't chant. I'm not really a Jimmy Lloyd guy. But like a little over an hour after he performed, I think he lost. Because I think Gringo Loco won that first match. But he comes through the crowd. He's walking past the crowd, and literally only 2 people recognized him. To be quite honest, he looked so much like his fan base that you could it's easily to get confused. But he literally walked right past us. For starters, he's not that big. He walks right past, and only one person was like, "Is that Jimmy Lloyd?" And somebody was like, "Yeah, that is Jimmy Lloyd." And that was it. Nobody asked him for an autograph. Nobody patted him on the back. Nobody offered to buy him a beer. He just walked past like woof, and I was just kind of like, "Wow, that was interesting." And then later, Tony Deppen, it was the same thing. He was hanging out on the stage, watching a match. It's still in his tights. He had literally just performed not 15 minutes before, and people were looking up like, "Who's that guy?" And he's wearing his glasses and everything. And I was like, "Is this Superman?" Like, he put his glasses on. He's still wearing his fucking tights, by the way. He put his glasses on. All of a sudden, he was like, "Who's that guy? I have no idea who that guy is." And then somebody was like, "It's Tony Deppen." And I was like, oh, like this fucking guy. Yeah, people were just chanting for him and going crazy for him not 20 minutes ago. And he's already virtually invisible to this audience. Effie, at the end of the show, walked straight through the crowd again. He came through the exit. Again, almost nobody recognized him. It was like he was just on stage with Ricky Morton and Too Cold Scorpio. And the crowd was going crazy for Effie. He's like very over in that crowd. Almost nobody recognized him as he walked through. It's the weirdest thing in the world for people to feel so big just minutes earlier, and now they are normies. They're just no different than you and me. And it was very odd. Like, I don't think they could have done that when I went to Raw. I don't think like AJ Styles could have done his match and then walked through the crowd and nobody would have mobbed him. Everybody would have mobbed the guy. Like, I thought at least they had that kind of following where people would be able to recognize them and like whoosh onto them. But nope. He just walked right straight through, and I was like, is this guy invisible? Like, I'm not even a GCW super fan, and I recognize fucking Effie as he walks through the fucking crowd, you know? Like, but that was a very interesting thing. And maybe it's an indie wrestling thing, and I just don't know that much about it. But it was interesting. So we know that these guys are not larger than life superstars. They're basically kind of normies. The moment that the lights are off, they're just normal guys, and they go back to being normal guys, and then you go back to treating them like normal guys. So that was interesting. But now let's talk about this seating arrangement. So I had 7th row ringside seats, right? I go down there, and every beardy dude chugging a beer, wearing a GCW beanie, is sitting on this bar stool. And I'm like, hey, could you help me to my seat? And he's like, oh, yeah, all the seats have names on them. I was like, okay. Like, could you point me to the 7th row at least? And he was like, you just look around here. You'll find it eventually. It's not that organized. I spent 30 minutes looking. Like, my vision is not that great either. And somebody's handwriting is also not that great. So they had sticky notes on the chairs, and your name is on the chair. But if you bought like a bulk of tickets, it would be like, let's say Matthew M. And it would be like Matthew M1, Matthew M2, Matthew M3, or whatever, So that's how it was so easy to get screwed up. Because you go in there, you're like, April A. And then you're like April A1, April A2, April A3, April A4, April A5, April A6. Like, damn, April A just bought this whole fucking row. So now you have to go to the next row. Then it's yada, 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 yada. And then it's got to go yada, 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 yada. I literally walked around that place looking at chairs, trying to read the scrabble on the goddamn Post-it note that is stuck to the back of the chair. And I'm just like, oh my God. I'm going to have to wait for everybody to sit down. And then to find the one open seat, and it's probably going to be mine. Of course, they wouldn't have made no big fucking deal because, they wouldn't have cared by the time bell started if that everybody had found their fucking seat. Ultimately, I did stop a lady and ask her, like, hey, do you know where my seat is, please? And she was able to. She went around. It took her another 5 or 6 minutes to find my seat. It took forever. I was really in a bad mood after that because I was like, these fucking guys, man. Like, and they were no help whatsoever. But at least the chick was some help, and so it was okay. Once the seating arrangement, I was actually further away from the ring than I thought I would be, but actually still pretty close, so that was nice. I did get some glass on me, and when they was popping the goddamn light tubes, that shit was flying all over the place. I had to pull my hat down in order to keep that shit out of my eyes. You wouldn't think that it wouldn't fly so far, but it does. It flies much farther than it looks on TV. Like, ringside, of course, they got it very bad, but us a little bit behind ringside. I was ringside, but like a little bit behind the first row, the first 2 or 3 rows. They got it really bad. But they were kind enough to talk about how cozy the venue is, and you guys might want to move back or step away if you don't want glass and shit like that flying all over you. So at least they gave people a heads up. But that closeness really, really matters, and is really important. Because throughout the night, it made it a very unique experience to be so close to the crowd. Like, for starters, there's always going to be that element of we can't see, because guys are traveling throughout the building. But several times throughout the show, those guys would basically come right into your back pocket. Like, I only really marked out 3 times during this entire show. And one of them was when Matt Cardona and Rhino came over right into my section. Like, they were literally so close to me, I could have smacked Matt Cardona in the face. And like, there's nothing quite like having wrestling right there. Like it's one thing to be there live. It's another thing for them to be like you to watch Rhino hit him with a chair right here. Like it's literally right here. And I was like, wow. Like that was special. That was very special. And I hate that my camera kept failing me. It failed me in multiple different ways. One, I recorded Ricky Morton's entrance because that's really one of the reasons why I went to the show, because Rock and Roll Express are on their last tour. And I was like, this might be my last chance to see Ricky Morton. You know, a huge fan of the Rock and Roll Express. Might be the last time I get to see him live. And I recorded his entrance and parts of his match, and all that stuff is gone. It didn't save. And I was disgusted by that. Also recorded a lot of the Kevin Nash segments. I recorded a lot of stuff that when I went to look at it later, it wasn't there anymore, which was a real bummer. But I always have the feelings. I was really excited about the Kevin Nash thing too, so that was really fun. But the seating was great. You know, when I think it was the Matthew Justice and Atticus Cogar, when they did their thing, when they jumped off the balcony or whatever, that was pretty close. You know, but it was almost like guys had dived into darkness from where I was, because there was so many other people there. Another interesting thing is, when they were doing that, they were fighting up there on that balcony, there were kids up there. There was a kid right there, you know? And I just kept looking like, do they not see this, like, 6-year-old right here? Like, they're hitting each other in the head, and they're falling up and down the steps. And I was like, wait a minute. And there wasn't a lot of kids there, but there was like a kid right there. So when he threw him off the balcony, there was a child literally right there. So that was like, they're creating unique experiences for everybody. A lot of the kids seem to have a blast. You know, they were having real fun because, you know, everybody's in there cussing. The kids were in there cussing. When they were chanting "Holy shit," there was a kid in the VIP area chanting "Holy shit" right along with them. Very unique, very unique. So the seating was good. Another good thing, it was like being inside of a club, because I was wondering what kind of music they were going to play and that kind of stuff. WWE is very generic shit, you know. Sometimes it was a Raw theme song. It was a mixture of other things. But here it was like, I walked in and they're playing album cuts off the Hot Boys. Like they're playing Riding. And I'm like, what the fuck? You know, like what the fuck? So all night it was rap music 90% of the night. It was Hot Boys, it was G Unit, it was Eminem. You'd think it would be like the hard rock stuff. It was like, no. It was like hip hop music. And this takes me back to the diversity in the demographic, because there was a lot of white boys who like, you know, rock music, but they also like rap too. Like a lot of hood white boys showed up to this show, you know, just really down to earth, cool dudes who, you know, want to sit back and drink a beer and fuck with this wrestling thing for a little while. And and it was very interesting, because it was almost like, this is very cool here. You know, this is very good. It's like you bringing everybody together, and it's a little something for everything, because when they played Pantera a little bit later, it was something that all of those people knew. I had no idea what the fuck that shit was. You know, even though I watched I felt like I heard the song before, but I didn't really know it. But that was kind of how it was, man. It was just the music choices seemed to fit everybody. So it was like, it went from Hot Boys to Pantera to some other shit, and it was just like, it was always something that fits that audience. So I thought that was very cool. All right, so almost 20 minutes in, let's talk about the show. To be quite honest, a lot of the matches don't matter again, because of the you know, it's a one and done essentially. There was very little in the way of storylines with GCW. The first match was a 6-way scramble, which Gringo Loco won. And watching people do all of that crazy lucha libre, flippity do shit, live is amazing. It really is. You get a different kind of appreciation for it when you see them doing that stuff live. It's very different. Alex Zane jumped off the stage to start the match. It was wild because I was like, whoa! I didn't even see him on the stage, and I was paying attention to everything because I was taking mental notes and trying to absorb the feeling. That's why also why I didn't record a lot of the videos, because I felt like sometimes it takes you out and you focusing on the phone and not focusing on what's right in front of you. But that was such a moment. That was wild right there. So that match was fun because there was, just guys jumping all over the place. And if you were in the front row, you probably got knocked over 100 times. There were some empty seats over there. I'm guessing maybe the people showed up late because the place was packed by the time the show was over. But there were some empty seats there in the front row for them to crash into. So that was okay. Jimmy Jacobs and Alex Shelley, they were, I think, third. I don't remember who went on second. But Jimmy Jacobs, Alex Shelley, let's talk about that, because he was preceded by Kevin Nash, who came out there to a huge ovation. Top two ovations, him and Sabu were the most over guys in the building, obviously. But it was tremendous for Kevin Nash, who, told this story about coming out there, coming back home and being part of the show and everything. And a lot of people didn't know. It's odd. A lot of people didn't know his relationship to Alex Shelley. They were kind of like, what's the deal here? Like, I like some of the whispering. It's different kinds of commentary for the wrestling show. And a lot of people were, some were a little bit younger. They didn't really get the Alex Shelley, Kevin Nash connection. Like, they didn't really see Paparazzi Productions, and they didn't really know that, that's what they were doing at TNA. Because for starters, it wasn't that long. Second, Alex Shelley didn't quite break through. So if you're not familiar with like mid-card TNA, how would you know Alex Shelley? And it was similar with Jimmy Jacobs, where it was like you have to know mid-card Ring of Honor to really know Jimmy Jacobs that well. But their match was very fun. I really enjoyed their match, mainly because the crowd was into hating Jimmy Jacobs. Some guy, he was right behind me, by the way, was screaming, "Fuck you, Jimmy! I hate you, Jimmy!" He was so, like, something about Jimmy Jacobs just brought out all the guttural hatred that this guy had at humanity. And so it was one guy chanting, "Let's go, Jimmy," and everybody else is chanting, "Fuck you, Jimmy." And it's loud and it's obnoxious. Nobody was chanting for Alex Shelley at all. It was all just vitriol at Jimmy Jacobs. It was great. And they had a fun little match. I think the second match was Leon Ruff and Jordan Oliver. I think that's what the second match. Leon Ruff is tiny in person. He's just paper thin. He got a great reaction being the first wrestler from Detroit that was out there. He didn't win, but they went out there and they had a pretty good match for two young guys. A nice little showcase for Leon Ruff. I didn't feel like anything happened in the match that I thought was absurd or, stupid or anything like that I could think of. That's probably why I don't remember it that well. The crowd was very kind of nice, even though they were kind of into Jordan Oliver a little bit, because he's a GCW regular. But it was a cold match with no real importance to it, but it was fun. Matt Cardona and Rhino really got people on their feet. This was the fourth match, I believe, right before intermission. This match was, look, Rhino has big show heat with me where I don't care about him. Like, the only reason I even care about Rhino on Impact is because he was involved with that great story with Violent by Design and everything. But Rhino has big show heat with me, where he doesn't change, he doesn't grow, he just kind of been doing the same thing for 20 years, and I'm just kind of like, go away. But Matt Cardona had done such a great job of coming out there and getting heat. For starters, everything Matt Cardona does on the indies is him cosplaying. This time he comes out cosplaying Kevin Nash. He's got the Diesel Power trunks, what they call Cardona Power. They got the tassels on them too. I didn't even notice the tassels until the match started. He's wearing the shades and everything. He's wearing a shirt that has a GCW with a with like a big red X on it, or the big red cross out. It was great. The whole thing. Chelsea Green did all the talking. I wasn't thrilled about that. But basically, it was talking about how trash GCW is and how Matt Cardona is going to come in there and raise the stakes and all that kind of stuff. So they had, fun time. There was somebody, I actually saw the guy who had the Cardona versus everybody, not Cardona versus everybody, but Cardona versus Detroit sign, Detroit versus Cardona. And Cardona reached into the crowd, snatched it, and tore it up, and then flung the pieces. And like I saw somebody duck as they hit from the sign as they threw it in the air. Like that's how close you were. That somebody could throw a sign and you might have to duck because it might hit you in the fucking head. So, so I'm sure somebody got half of that guy's sign, and that was nice for him. So Matt Cardona and Rhino was fine. Watched Chelsea Green get put through a table. She got gored through a table. This was not for the ECW television title. This was just Matt Cardona being a guy who was saying that he's the deathmatch king, and Ezekiel Jackson was the last real ECW champion. Of course, people booed that. And then some guys were like, Ezekiel Jackson was cool, though. I was like, yeah, right. Nobody believes that. Nobody buys into that shit. But everybody got that he was just trying to say that to get heat. Chelsea Green had been carrying a bag all night. We found out that there's an ECW television title inside the bag. And after he pinned Rhino, he started calling himself the ECW TV champion, and then made the announcer guy call him the ECW TV champion. So I guess that's where he's going with now, is that he's the ECW TV champion now. But Matt Cardona is the only guy who felt big. He felt huge, and he was big. He's a big dude. Rhino's a big dude too. Rhino's not tall, but he's wide. He's a big dude. He stands out. And so this was like the first real main event. And like I said, they fought through the crowd and it came right into my area. It was basically right in my lap. And I'm telling you, people act weird when stuff is that close. Some people spread out. Some people get closer. I was one of those people that was like, I can't believe they're standing right here. And I'm like, wow, like that was something. So after Matt Cardona and Rhino, where Matt Cardona won the match, we went to intermission. So that basically meant you sat around for 10 to 15 minutes. They wouldn't allow me to leave the building and go and get cash and come back. There was no re-entry. That sucked. So I wasn't able to buy any merchandise, which is odd, because I really would have bought a hoodie if I could. So after intermission was Dark Sheik was wrestling, and Dark Sheik wrestled Tony Deppen, and they had a decent little match. The crowd was into Dark Sheik, especially a certain sect of society was into Dark Sheik. Dark Sheik is a trans woman, I believe. So there was a lot of people that was really into that whole thing. A lot of people were into Tony Deppen. Were kind of familiar with him because of his previous GCW stints. I'm almost certain nobody recognized him from Ring of Honor, which I was pretty much the only one who did. I remember yelling at him that too bad ROH closed or something. But that was another thing that was cool about being inside the venue. I should have mentioned this earlier, is that you could yell stuff at people and they would yell it back because the venue is so small and so intimate. They can hear you. Like, this was very cool. Like, Alex Shelley was doing Kevin Nash stuff in his match. People didn't get it. They didn't know why he was doing such basic offense. And it was because he was doing Kevin Nash stuff, like the elbows in the corner and the foot to the throat. And then I was like, "You missing the hair flip." And then he did like two more moves, and then he did a hair flip. And then, some people in my section started laughing like he actually heard you. And I was like, shit, I couldn't believe he could hear me. But that was pretty cool. And to tie that into it, Tony Deppen actually heard somebody tell him to go back to Hershey or something like that. And he started yelling at them in the crowd. And I thought that was pretty cool too. Like, they can actually hear you, So that's how intimate that building is. So that was fun. But Tony Deppen beat Dark Sheik. Match was fine. I didn't see that much of it because I was kind of, at this point, I sat down through most of this match. I was standing up for certain parts of other matches, but I was sitting down mostly for this match. And they did the Sabu introduction where we gave Sabu a lot of credit, a lot of love, man. Sabu came out there and it was tremendous. The place erupted. Everybody loved Sabu. He didn't do anything, he didn't say anything. But he just came out there to be appreciated, and that was great. They tied this into the first death match, which was Atticus Cogar and Matthew Justice, I believe. So they did this angle where Sabu was about to talk, and then Atticus Cogar, who is again a midget, comes out there and talks about how he doesn't look up to Sabu anymore because Sabu is an old broken man with a busted bank account, and that he had an aura when I looked up to you. You had an aura. Now all you do is talk. You know, you used to never talk. Now you do nothing but talk. And they did this whole thing where they were gonna, Matthew Justice came out to to save the damsel in distress that is Sabu, for Christ's sake. So they did their romp through the crowd. Nobody even announced either one of these guys. I didn't know who they were until near the end of the show. I swear to God. I had no idea who these people were. So I was just kind of like, oh, okay, I can sit down. I have no idea who these guys are. Nobody's going to introduce them or anything. Like, okay, do your thing. So they did the whole deathmatch stuff. They hit each other with everything. Matthew Justice got stabbed in the forehead with some green shit. I was like, what is that? I don't know. I couldn't really see. People were kind of into it. They fought around the building, through the crowd, up to the balcony area. They jumped off that shit. I think one of them got thrown down some stairs. It was pretty wild brawl. I think Atticus Cogar won because Sabu, who was then brought to the VIP area, he got grabbed up by some guys, and that distracted Matthew Justice, and he ended up losing. But then they had this extended segment with Matthew Justice talking about how great Sabu was and how Sabu is an inspiration to him, and we need to give Sabu an 18-minute standing ovation. We gave him I think at this point he got probably about maybe a 2-minute standing ovation. I think before everybody was kind of like, all right, it's time to wrap it up. But it was great, they played his music, then they played Pantera Walk, and he jumped on top of the speaker. Matthew Justice jumped on top of the speakers, even though he was told not to go up there. He went up there anyway. I saw Brett Lauderdale told him not to go up there, and he was like, fuck it, I'm doing it anyway. It's an indie show. What's the worst that could happen? He won't give you my hot dog after the show. So that was fun. That whole thing was fun. The next match was the match I came to see, which was Effie and Ali Catch, better known as Bussy, versus Too Cold Scorpio and Ricky Morton. Again, one of the biggest draws for me coming to this show was Ricky Morton, because I know this is going to be the end for him. But Too Cold Scorpio was also a great, just tremendous. The comeback that he's been on, I've seen a couple of his matches on GCW. He's been having a blast. He's been having fun. People have been having fun with him being back. It's been great. It's been really good stuff. And I tried to record his entrance and Ricky Morton's entrance, but both of them are gone. The crowd was far more into Effie and Ali Catch than they were into Too Cold Scorpio and Ricky Morton, which is one of the great tragedies of American wrestling, is that people, as we get older, we get further and further away from the heyday of the Rock and Roll Express. But this match was fine, even though it was intergender, with Ali Catch beating up on Ricky Morton and Too Cold Scorpio. But it was a fun match, Effie is a far more serious performer than I thought he was. Like, he still does weird shit, like wrestling in fishnets, which triggered some guy in the crowd. He was super triggered by Effie wrestling in fishnets, which was hilarious. But the one thing I did notice is that he does have charisma. And of gay pro wrestlers, he probably has the most charisma of any gay pro wrestler I've ever, like any openly gay pro wrestler that I've ever come across. And I was thinking to myself, like, why wouldn't AEW pick this guy up? Like, It seemed like if you're going to hire a gay pro wrestler, like I know they have Sonny Kiss, they have Jake Atlas now. Like Effie has more personality in his mustache than those two guys, you know. But I don't know. Maybe he doesn't want to be. But it was a fun match. It got they got the place jumping. It felt like the main event. That was how fun it was for this one match. And I was in part of the section that was chanting for Ricky Morton and chanting rock and roll. So if you heard rock and roll through Fight TV, it was probably me and like maybe I don't know, maybe 200 other people that was yelling for Ricky Morton, and so almost solely for Ricky Morton and Tuco Scorpio. Even though I kind of figured they would lose, and then he ended up losing. I was like, this sucks. But at least I got to watch Ricky Morton wrestle live, even if he is like 60 or something like that. So that was great. That was a great experience for me, and that was really meaningful. And I really enjoyed that. After the match, Effie cut a promo on Jeff Jarrett. It was actually a very solid promo about not letting Jeff Jarrett suck the blood of indie wrestling, and he will wrestle anybody other than Jeff Jarrett at the Hammerstein Ballroom, which of course means that he will be wrestling Jeff Jarrett at the Hammerstein Ballroom. I really was hoping old Slapnuts would show up because I never got a chance to see Jeff Jarrett in person. So I was really hoping Jeff Jarrett would show up, but we got no such luck. But it was fun. That match was really fun. And it was probably my favorite match to watch live outside of the Scramble, where all those guys were jumping all over the place. So that was probably my favorite match to see live. And it was everything that I don't like. Weirdos like Effie, wrestling in fishnets, blowing kisses at people. They played into his sexuality a lot, with him doing stuff like humping people's faces, people humping his face. But it was an incredible fun match because of the crowd. Being in the crowd made that match really fun. From a wrestling standpoint, my favorite match probably would have been Alex Shelley and Jimmy Jacobs, or Rhino and Cardona, because again, it was right in my lap. The main event though was a death match. It was Hoodfoot versus Alex Colon, and some people did leave right when they started saying like, this is a death match, a motherfucking death match, and started telling people like, look, if you don't want glass and shit all over you, you might want to move. Like as they started putting up the glass and the fluorescent light tubes and everything, some people did grab their coat and start making their way out of there. And I was like, no way am I going to miss a chance to watch somebody get stabbed in person. Like, maybe death matches are a different experience in person. I'm not going to skip out on that. I need to see that. And I was right. It is much more of a jump scare in person than it is on TV. On TV, it seems it comes across still a lot more cartoonish, but when the light is glistening off somebody's bald head and they're covered in blood, it's completely different. Like it's completely just wow. Like watching a guy get light tubes raked across his forehead, and you're like right there able to see it. It doesn't make it cooler, but it does give it more of a horror movie vibe. Like that's one thing that a lot of people have said that, oh, it's like a horror movie. And it was kind of like, I don't get it. Like, what's supposed to be scary about it? But it's not scary. It's gross, And that's the thing about it that really kind of takes you into it, is like, the grossness of it, the over the top nature of it. And you're breathing in, the light tube powder, and glass is flying all over the place. Like there's a couple of times where people like right in front of me will be like raking glass out of, or powder or stuff off of them. And like, some of it almost got on me. I was like, oh shit. I pulled my tab down to at least cover my eyes a little bit. So I didn't want to get that shit all in my face. But it was a death match, which meant, guys just hit each other until it was time to go home. But it was hard for, like, the psychology of a death match is very hard to even discuss, because they have all these toys out there and they're not leaving until all the toys are broken. So as they try different finishes. They do hit each other with big moves, and the fluorescent light tube to the legs and all this kind of stuff. And they're doing the 1, 2, oh, and I'm thinking like, maybe they're caught up in the moment, but they ain't going nowhere until they break everything in that ring, and that window is not broken yet. Like until they break that, this match is not over. And so it was easier for me to buy into the 2 counts once all of the stuff that I was able to see was broken. So I was just kind of like, all right, this is just a masturbatory blood thing until everything is broken and there's nothing else for them to break. And so when I think a Hoodfoot suplex Alex Colon through the window and it shattered glass all over the place, I was like, okay, now this match can properly end. And it was over like a couple of minutes later. So all in all, it was a great experience. Very fun. They announced another GCW Detroit show on April the 23rd. If I don't have to work that day, I may go. Because usually when I work weekends, I have to work Saturday and Sunday. So if I don't have to work, I'll definitely go then too. But I got everything out of this show that I wanted. I got to see some people that I've seen on television live. I'm getting to see them live. I got to see Kevin Nash and Sabu, and I got to see Ricky Morton perform, actually. So it was fun. Like, the show was really, really fun, even though I didn't really care that much about the card. Even though I wasn't like completely and totally into every single match because I didn't know every person. It was still a great experience because it was very unique. And comparing it to Raw, when you look at how Raw is set up, for starters, there's so many more people and everything is so pushed back. There's a detachment between what WWE is like, what the performers are doing in the audience. And the bigger the venue, the less likely you are to be heard. And you can yell all kind of crazy shit, but they're not going to hear you because there's so many other people yelling crazy shit. In that building, they can hear you, especially if they're in the ring. They certainly can hear you. And there's people down there hanging off the balcony. There's some guy, he was just amped all night. He was just bringing all the energy. I thought, man, he had so much energy. I thought he worked there. Like, this guy got to work at GCW. There's no way he's into every single match. And he's screaming all the time. Like, I did not, I almost blew my voice out trying to yell over that guy. Because I was trying to compete with him. But it was fun. It's really fun. Raw is is very detached. It's also very professional as far as exactly where your seat is. But the intimacy of the venue, I was just saying this, I think in a Q&A, that the intimacy of the venue, I love that. When, you can get, because I feel like that's the best way wrestling should be, is that there's no barriers, no barricades between the audience and the wrestler. Maybe some security here and there to stop fans from doing silly shit. But there was almost no security in this show. All the people were sitting there to make sure folks got into their proper area, but that was about it. There was, I think, one security guard, and he was at the VIP area, and that was it. There wasn't a ton of security, almost, and if they were security, they didn't seem to be armed. It was just really cool. It was really chill, and I had a blast. It was really fun. Would I follow GCW from now on? I don't know. Probably not. Again, it's not really my style, and it don't really do a great job of having stories that connect from show to show. But people are trying to do that. As they increase that, it increases my enjoyment of the show. So I enjoyed the show. Yeah, I had a blast. It's very different from Monday Night Raw. I'm glad I was able to have both of those experiences so close together, because I could compare them and look at them and say, in WWE, man, for starters, there's a lot of talking segments. There's a lot of downtime. And this was a GCW pay-per-view event, which I should have mentioned from the beginning. And it was operating like a pay-per-view event. It was match after match after match. They broke it up with some segments for Kevin Nash and Sabu, but it was matches forward. Let's go. As soon as that match is over, let's move on to the next one. On Raw, it was a lot of downtime because, commercials and, so there was a lot of lights out, and there was the intermission stuff where, at Raw there was the kiss cam and the hawk it up cam where you could show the kids and all this kind of stuff. There was no sophisticated camera work in GCW. In fact, it looked like a dude that was recording this show on his phone. That's what it looked like. That looked like the extent of their production quality was some guy walking around with his phone on a selfie stick recording the show. But of course it wasn't like a phone on a selfie stick, but it just kind of felt that way, but it was really fun. Definitely would go again. Definitely suggest if it's in your area to go check it out. It's not that expensive either. Maybe I could have splurged, and it probably would have cost me maybe $100 or something like that to get a front row seat. I don't know if I want to sit that close, but I definitely want to be a little bit closer than 7th row. Maybe 4th row or something like that ought to be more my speed. I don't want to be that so close that glass gets all over me and some indie midget jumps into my damn pocket. I don't want that. But it was a fun show. Let me know what you guys think if you saw the show. Otherwise, like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel, donate to the channel. Thank you guys for your time. I'll talk to you guys later, man. Peace out.
MagMongoSlade. Best house I ever drew, Daddy.